Large language models and AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Mixtral, LLaMA, Gemini, and so on are amazing tools to make the life of a requirements engineer so much more efficient. And there are many, many different use cases. And today I'm going to show you what we can do about user stories and how we can write better user stories. How can AI assist us in doing that? First, we're going to start to talk a little bit about the user stories, and then I'm going to show you live how you can write better user stories. All right, let's dig in. A user story is basically a simple and concise description of some functionality for your product or for your application from the perspective of an end user. It focuses on the user's needs and on the value that the feature will provide. User stories are often used in agile frameworks such as Scrum or Safe. Bigger chunks are called epics, smaller chunks might be just tasks or subtasks, etc., etc. In general, in essence, they are requirements. Now, how to write good user stories? There are several different templates that can help you guide the way. For example, here you can see the 5 whys as who, when, where, I want what in order to why. Or Mike Cohn, who has developed a different one, which is as a type of user, I want some goal, so that some reason. And the third one by Chris Matt actually puts more priority on the value that is delivered over the type of user. That's what you can also see in the phrase, in the template. In order to achieve some value, as a type of user, I want some functionality. These are simple templates, doesn't matter which one you're using, probably that one which suits your needs best or which you like best. They help us to write requirements from the perspective of an end user and which highlights also the value that the feature will provide. Why are we using user stories? Well, they're user-centric. As I said, they're collaborative. It facilitates the communication between stakeholders, developers, and users, and we have a flexibility to iterate and to refine. Now, user stories in details, because just a simple text or just a simple sentence is not all of it, it's just half the story. What must be fulfilled for a particular user story to be considered done? I.e., by when can an end user or the stakeholder or a tester say, yes, developer has done a good job, this user story can be considered done? Exactly, this is what we need acceptance criteria for. Acceptance criteria, some people call it also conditions of satisfaction, which is just another term which is also used. I brought you a couple of examples. So basically they detail out what behavior the user story or the feature that the user story describes should have in order to consider it done. And if we're talking about quality, because we wanted to write better user stories, right? There are some quality checks with the 3 C's by Jeffries. Basically, 3C stands for card, confirmation, and conversation, which means card. Originally, those user stories were just put on small paper cards, so it has to fit on a card, it has to be short enough. Then we need some confirmation. How can we confirm that it has been implemented? That's usually what in the old world has been written on the back side of the card, which is the acceptance criteria. And third C is for conversation. A user story is always a promise for a conversation that the product owner will have with the team at least once. It highly facilitates the communication between individuals and the team. Now, more about quality. We can look at the house of quality of a user story. So basically, on the bottom, we can see the 3 C's, card, conversation, and confirmation. We can see the acceptance criteria. And then we have another acronym, which is called INVEST. So how can you check or validate that a user story is a good user story? Well, try to apply the INVEST criteria. INVEST stands for I for independent or immediately actionable. Independent in the sense that the user story is independent from other user stories, but it also, and that's even more important, that the user story is independent from work from other teams. So we shouldn't have a waiting component in there in a user story, because that would mean that there's a high risk that we spill over into the next sprint, which is what we don't want. N stands for negotiable. Negotiable in the sense that we shouldn't focus so much on the solution, but more on the requirement or on the problem, because then we can negotiate The product owner can negotiate with the developers because the developers might have something in mind where they come up with a way better solution than the product owner or the business would have originally imagined. V stands for valuable, in the sense that every user story should increase the value and have a specific value for the end user. And V also stands for vertical. If we create a user story and we slice it, slicing and splitting of user story is going to be the topic in another video. But if we want to do it, it has to be vertical, which means then we don't do it layer by layer, but we do it vertical. So at the end of every sprint or at the finish of every user story, the user has got something to look at, to try out, to demonstrate. E stands for estimable. So the user story should be clear enough that the dev team can estimate the amount of effort that it would take. S for small enough, it should be small enough so a user story fits into a sprint. And T stands for testable, so how can someone who does the testing can confirm that the user story actually has been implemented. Now, how can AI help us in writing better user stories? You can see here I've prepared a little prompt. Well, it's a little bit more than just a little prompt. It's a longer prompt. And what it does, it ensures it'll ask me for the context, what it's all about. It'll pull out some features. It's going to be an interactive dialogue. And in the end, it will spill out a user story with a given template, like the user story, a background, the acceptance criteria, additional elements, prioritization, a suggestion for prioritization, and so much more. With this prompt, ChatGPT or any other of your favorite LLMs is going to ask you for additional information for a system architecture document, or maybe a summary of your system, or a tech stack, or anything else. It'll also ask for more clarifying questions in case there's more information needed. And afterwards, it'll also come up with and suggest to split the user story, or say the original requirement, into smaller chunks. And when it does that, it will always consider vertical splitting, as we can see in the invest criteria that I explained just a second ago. And it'll also take into consideration different splitting patterns, which are common or known across the industry. And I've mentioned a couple of them, so it gets the idea, kind of. All right, let's go and quickly demo that up. So I prepared a new window with ChatGPT. I'll put this prompt in and I'll let it run. Now it should first of all tell me great, and it will ask me more. So it will ask me for more information because I've just told it what it's supposed to be doing and what is the output format, but I haven't given any more context. Now the great thing is, in one of the last videos we developed a product vision board, which I'm going to use in many of those examples. So I'll just paste that in the product vision board, which it gives the vision, the target groups, the needs, the product features, and the business goals. So now it gets me all the context. It asks if I want to do something more. But now I think it asks me first of all on which feature I would like to focus on. So I've prepared a little prompt for that. I want to focus on the feature because, remember from one of the last videos, we were looking at an impact map. How can we achieve our business goal the fastest? And that was around an automated and user-friendly listing tool for organizations so they can easily list food on our platform. So I'm just telling it that I want to go through that. Now it's just looking into the specifics. It gives me user types, listing details, automation, user experience, integration, and constraints. This is also great. And now I have an interactive dialogue where I can go through and discuss, hey, can you please branch out this user story, that user story, and it will always come up with the same format as I've specified. Just to demo you that, to show you, one of the results was a user story split, where it just splits me into different user stories with a title and an objective. And if I drill down into one of the user stories, it will give me exactly the format that I requested. It tells me the user stories, it gives me background information, acceptance criteria, additional elements, prioritization, and also collaboration and ownership suggestions. As always, AI is just an assistant. You'll have to dig in, you'll have to refine, you can discuss, or you can just rework the text. Be sure that you don't just take over whatever AI has generated for you. Obviously, there's not that much context, or there's a risk that you might miss something, so always double check your results. That's all for today. Thank you so much for your attention. If you liked it, then please like the video, hit the thumb button, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment with your thoughts, with your feedback, with your experience trying out this use case. Thank you.